Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. Got another Master Duel video for you. Coming at you with some Fiendsmith Mitsurugi gameplay from the latest Duelist Cup. So I was able to get a couple of games that really showcase just how good this deck is at playing through hand traps. We're going to start off with this game, Draw Phase, Prayers, Tribute the Habakiri. I really wanted to stop and talk about this for a second. Let me go ahead and do our other searches here to really highlight just how actually not weak to Droll this deck is. It's, really commonly thought that Droll is able to just stop Mitsurugi dead in its tracks, and there are some cases where that is true, especially if you lead with pre-prep and nothing else, but one big misplay I see a ton of Mitsurugi opponents that I'm playing against on ladder make is that they activate Prayers to search Habakiri during the main phase, and that's a lot of the reason why Droll and Lockbird is able to stop them. If you do it during draw phase, even if you don't have anything to tribute, you can just go Prayers during draw phase, add Habakiri. Then your next search will be the Saji you summon off of Habakiri, grabbing Ritual. And as long as you have the Habakiri plus Ritual, you can make plays through Droll and Lockbird. So I really wanted to stop and talk about playing through Droll here, even though this game is actually going to be about playing through Nibiru instead. We're going to use Habakiri effects to summon Saji from deck. I can grab Great Purification because I already have the Ritual in my hand, and now I can use Ritual to summon the Murakumo by using the Night Sword Serpent and Kusanagi from my deck. Now we can go Chainlink 1 Kusanagi, Chainlink 2 Night Sword Serpent. Very important, especially now that Ghost Spell is very prevalent in the meta. You want Kusanagi to be Chainlink 1, that way it doesn't get hit by the Ghost Spell. The Night Sword Serpent body really doesn't matter nearly as much. Alright, so here I'm going to pivot into my Fiendsmith engine. My opponent actually started getting past priority here, so I kind of figured that they were going to drop a Nibiru on me. I didn't really want to have to deal with getting my Mitsurugi Ritual monsters that had already been tributed, hit by the Nibiru. So I'm going to bait out the Nibiru with the Fiendsmith engine. Well, I'm going to bait it out, and if they don't take the bait, I'm going to make Caesar and they can't Nibiru me anyway. Okay, so we're going to summon Sequence, and sure enough, here's that Nibiru. They're going to tribute both of my monsters, summon the Nib, and then I get a token. It's important to note that Nibiru does tribute, so it'll activate the Murakumo effect. I can add Mirror and then revive the Murakumo from my graveyard. This is, again, why I went through my Fiendsmith engine before activating Ritual to tribute, my onboard Murakumo. Because if they had activated Nibiru after I had done that, I would not be able to revive Murakumo again. But now, basically, even though I lost access to my Fiendsmith stuff, I can go into the rest of my full Mitsurugi combo, even though my opponent just dropped a Nib on me. I can even blow up their Nib with the Murakumo. Then I'm going to use Ritual to tribute the Habakiri in hand to summon Futsuno Mitama from my deck. Now we can go Mirror Effect, tribute the Futsuno Mitama on field to revive that Habakiri that's now in my graveyard. This will not only get me another body on board, but of course it will trigger my Futsuno Mitama effect in order to add a Prayers and then revive. From here I can simply link my token plus Habakiri into IP Masquerena, set 3 of my cards, have the Ghost Spell still in hand, and as you can see, I have pretty much just a full Mitsurugi end board going into my opponent's 4-card hand through their Nibiru. Alright, they're going to lead with Harpy's Feather Duster. I am actually going to use Great Purification here, mostly because of the Imperm. If it was just Great Purification plus Prayers, there is a chance I actually might have let it go, but no, I want to save that Imperm if nothing else, so going to tribute the Futsuno Mitama, Chainlink 1 Mitama, Chainlink 2 Mirrors, can add the Prayers and then summon back the Futsuno Mitama. They're going to go normal summon Vision Hero Vion. I'm definitely going to want to Imperm that. Vion, if you only have 1 negate against Hero, like an Imperm or something, is really good to hit. Both the on-summon effect and the once per turn effect are hugely important for the Hero combo line, so Vion's a pretty good choke point. They're going to activate the... Oh, what is this card? It is EN Engage Neospace. So it summons a Neospacia monster or a level 5 or higher elemental hero monster from your deck, and if you do, add a polymerization from your deck or graveyard to your hand. The or graveyard is actually super important here because this card includes an effect that can add a card from the graveyard to the hand, I can actually negate it with the Ghost Spell, and I don't have to use, one of my effects here. Not that I guess I could have stopped it with another effect, but I can use Ghost Spell to negate that, and then I'll use Murakumo against the Shadow Mist effect, forcing them to discard their last card, which is just an increase, and they get to add Spirit of Neos. We're going to try to move to battle phase with the Vion plus Spirit of Neos. I don't know if they were going to go for Masquerena or what, but I can just go for Little Knight, banish the Vion, and then they have literally nothing left. Knowing that, they're just going to concede here. So there we go, a great example of demonstrating not only how many searches you can do during the draw phase, thus nullifying Droll and Lockbird, more or less, but you can also just play through a Nibiru if you sequence things correctly. But let's show a game where our opponent actually resolves a Droll and Lockbird. So this duel is only going to be one turn, and we're going first, but again, as mentioned, we're going to show us comboing through a Droll and Lockbird. The big thing is that you just have access to Habakiri plus the Mitsurugi Ritual. Now here we did open the Mitsurugi Ritual in our hand, but let's say instead of pre-prep and Ritual, we had just opened Habakiri plus like another Fulos, or just any random hand trap, right? We could still go activate Habakiri, special Saji, Saji F, and then tribute Saji, Saji F to add a Ritual, and that's when your opponent would hand trap you, right? So here in this scenario, we're going to go pre-prep to add the Mirror and the Habakiri, and then we're going to get hit with the Droll. So we're effectively in the same scenario, we just have the Mirror and we haven't used Habakiri's summon effect yet. So we're going to activate the Ritual, sending Kusanagi and Night Sword Serpent from the deck to the graveyard, allowing us to summon the Habakiri from hand. Chainlink 1 Kusanagi, Chainlink 2 Night Sword Serpent. Now we can summon the Night Sword Serpent, and then Kusanagi can wheel the Ritual back to our hand. We can then activate the Ritual again, tributing the Habakiri in order to summon the Murakumo from our deck. Now I can normal summon this extra Fuelos, link it away with the Night Sword Serpent, and pivot into Moon of the Closed Heaven. Another reason, this is the main reason why I really love playing Fiendsmith and Mitsurugi. If your opponent resolves a Droll and Lockbird against you, you don't just get to end on the Murakumo like you would normally, you can actually then go into like full engine. But note that even if you were playing pure Mitsurugi and you were in this situation, there's still a ton of things you could do under the Droll and Lockbird here. You could link your onboard Night Sword Serpent plus the Murakumo into Dynamundo, even if you didn't have anything in hand to normal summon. We could normal summon Fuelos, link it with the Night Sword Serpent to make IP Masquerena. That's particularly good to do if you have like a Prayers in hand, but even if not, you could still at the very least IP into Dynamundo during your opponent's turn, which would of course be very good. You could go into Little Knight, you could go into a rank 4, lots of options here, even though we got hit with the Droll. So plays through a lot of the most common devastating hand traps in the format, but let's see a game where we play against one of those common and devastating decks of the format. So this is going to end up being a going second game against Dracotail. Definitely the big bad of the current meta. So let's see how well we can open here. Okay, we've got Droll and Lockbird, which is pretty notably not that great against Dracotail, but we do have an Ash Blossom. They're going to open Malulu and then fuse with a Malulu that's in hand plus Fuelos. So basically this is the Malulu plus any monster combo line, but they get the bonus Malulu on their end board as well. They can keep this on field. So Chainlink 1 Arthelion, Chainlink 2 Malulu. Malulu sets Ketu, which they're going to try to use to add Fimena. Arthelion wheels the Malulu and Fuelos back to their hand, which I don't really care about, because they've already summoned and those aren't really going to do anything in hand on my turn. They're going to go for the Ketu. We're definitely going to want to Ash Blossom this, keep them off the Fimena. Now they basically just have like 2 unknown cards in hand, and all we have to deal with is the Malulu. They're actually going to activate Performapal Odd Eyes Dissolver here, which is a very interesting choice, but one that we've actually seen being teched rather in the OCG. This plays around, I'm trying to remember exactly what this plays around. I don't think it's Retaliating Sea because it still counts as a spell card. But there are some situations where this is actually better than having like another, as opposed to like King of the Swamp plus Polymerization, right? That would also play better against like Droll and Lockbird. But Here they're going to end up fusing their 2 Malulus and summoning Chaos Star Source Dragon. I have to imagine this is just them clicking yellow buttons here. But to be fair, even if they hadn't done that, their board state would have been that much better. They would have had a Malulu, so they could have gone into Arthelion and our turn, but we have Habakiri plus Luri, so I'm pretty confident we could have definitely baited out their plays. I think they're going to end up conceding pretty quickly here. I'm going to reveal the Habakiri, and that's going to be it. So if they hadn't have done that, and if they would have still had access to the onboard Malulu effect, I think I actually would have led with normal summon Fabled Luri. Normal summon Fabled Luri, go into the Fiendsmith line, right? And then basically if they negate with Malulu, which they'll probably do, or fuse, with Malulu, that's fine. Then I can go Habakiri and go into Mitsurugi plays. But if they don't, I can still just go into Caesar or Desiree, really, but Caesar would probably be better. And then if they would try to Malulu after that point, I could just Caesar to negate and destroy. So again, another example of how well this deck can push through hand traps, and another use case, big use case of the Fiendsmith engine. Just opening Fiendsmith cards plus Habakiri is so good. Got one last duel to show you before we go to the deck list. And that last game is going to be a going first duel against Exosister. Been a long time since I played against Exosister, but this deck is a pretty scary matchup for Mitsurugi because naturally we want to move a ton of cards in and out of the graveyard, and again, obviously, Exosister is really not going to like that. So here's another example of draw phase prayers, add Habakiri. Again, there's no reason not to do that. It just straight up plays around a Droll and Lockbird. That's also Droll and Lockbird is why I didn't just lead with pre-prep here, of course. But now that I know they don't have it, we're going to use it to add Mirror and Murakumo. That way Ritual can summon Murakumo from hand. I'll send Nightsword Serpent even though it's in my hand, because 1, it's a free body and I have a normal summon, Lacrima. 2, I can still go into, or I can still chain block the Kusanagi rather, this way. Although to be fair, if I didn't send Nightsword Serpent, it would have been Aramasa from my deck, which then I would have just gone Chainlink 1, Kusanagi, Chainlink 2, Aramasa to still chain block around Ghost Spell. Okay, so we're going to use Engraver for Tract here. Again, I did not begin my turn by activating Engraver or pre-prep to play around Droll and Lockbird. If they had Droll and Lockbird, Habakiri for Saji being my first search, grabbing Ritual was the most important play to make. So if you're wondering how to sequence your plays when using this deck, if you have a lot of options, that's the most important thing to think about. Think about, okay, if they have Droll and Lockbird, which one of these plays screws me over the most? Which one is the best one to make? And that should inform you, I think, in your initial play. After you know they don't have Droll, then you can start thinking about other hand traps. Alright, so we're going to... They started getting past priority again here, so that's why I decided to pivot into the Fiendsmith engine to go into Caesar. Now we can go Mitsurugi Ritual, tribute away the Murakumo. This also plays around... Well, not also plays around, I was just playing around Nib by going into the Caesar here. Now I can summon the Utsu no Mitama from deck. And because I led with prayers on draw phase, I have to use Mirror to summon Habakiri from hand, but that's fine. It's not that big of a deal. If you don't prayers during the draw phase, you can actually add prayers off Saji instead of Ritual, and then use that in order to add the Ritual. That play is really risky in a Droll and Lockbird, though, so I would really only do that if you opened Habakiri and no other starters. Here's a rare instance of me actually summoning the Abawaku. I decided to go into that instead of like a rank 8 or SP Little Knight here, just because I wanted to have some extra utility. So they're going to lead with Imperm on Caesar. I am actually going to use Great Purification on this because I think the 2 Caesar summon negates are actually, in a lot of scenarios, more valuable than the Great Purification Omni negate. Plus, it was such an immediate thing they did. I don't know. This either felt like bait or desperation, which I mean, duh. Most plays are one or the other, but it felt a little more, I don't know, it felt equal parts like both, honestly. And it kind of was equal parts both, because they actually have a second Imperm they're also going to use against Caesar. And of course, knowing in the retrospect that they are on Exosister, definitely makes sense why they're targeting my Caesar so aggressively. I'm going to make them discard for it with the Murakumo effect. They're going to go Martha, summon Ellis from the deck, and then they have another Ellis they're going to summon from hand, before overlaying their 2 Ellises into the Michaelis. So I'm going to go Abalaku to try to pop the Mikalis here. They're going to banish my Engraver from graveyard. I don't really care about that, except for the fact that it is going to cause one of my cards to get moved out of the graveyard. So if that's going to be happening anyway, and they're going to use the Martha effect on the next Chain Link, I want to use prayers now to send and then revive Murakumo, because Murakumo is already summoned back off its own effect. I really should have attributed the Futsu no Mitama for that great purification. But because the Murakumo was summoned by its own effect, I have to summon it back with prayers. However, by doing it this way, I can use Murakumo's Destroy All Monsters when the Martha has summoned, is trying to summon another monster. So realizing this, my opponent's going to Chain Called by on the Murakumo, which is annoying, but actually kind of fine in the grand scheme of things. Prayers doesn't target, so I can just summon something else, and again, they're going to move cards out of my graveyard on this Chain Link anyway, so it kind of doesn't matter. There goes my Engraver. Abalaku destroys the Mikalis. Now they can activate Martha's effect, but they concede shortly afterward. Because if you just look at the board state, I'm so far ahead here, right? Plus, I'll get to summon again from the graveyard off the Futsu no Mitama whenever they Exceed summon whatever it is, right? Even if they go for another Mikalis, it's already used the Banish effect, so they would only have the Search. And again, I just have such a board advantage here that they just decided to concede right at the activation of that effect. Yeah. Anyway, there's the games. Let me show you the deck list. All right, so here is my current Fiendsmith Mitsurugi list. I went up to 42 cards, mostly to include a couple copies of Ghost Spell, just because obviously this is a pretty good tech card in this meta. Plus, we are playing Nightsword Serpent, which is pretty optional in the grand scheme of things, but I really like having the extra body. That said, you don't really want to open it, so that's another reason to be on 42 cards. Plus, this deck plays, I think, 16 total starters if you count Fiendsmith cards as starters, which is another reason why we're really comfortable going over 40. So in the extra deck, you'll notice that I don't play Chorozo plus Lina, Lina being the Light Spirit Charmer. And if you include those in your extra deck, you do have the ability to pivot from Fiendsmith into Mitsurugi. But I don't think it's super necessary. I gotta be honest, in my total time, not just in this latest playtest session, but in my total time playing Fiendsmith Mitsurugi, including when I was on Lina plus Chorozo. Chorozo, for those who might not know, is this one. So even when I was playing those two cards in my extra deck, I'd never really had any situations where I went first, only opened Fiendsmith stuff, and used that to go into Mitsurugi, right? I just never had it really come up. So I decided to instead play some more, I guess, kind of niche extra deck cards. Like Chaos Angel, to an extent, is pretty niche. Exciton Knight, Typhon obviously is never really required. Even the Abalaku is definitely not required, but these are other more niche extra deck options that could potentially come up. So at the end of the day, it just really comes down to what you want to play into most, like what kind of situations you want to be able to have outs to. Chaos Angel is really nice to make with various awkward board states. Also, with Engraver plus our level 4 Mitsurugi monsters, you can actually make this with Light plus Dark in this deck. Exciton Knight is not only a rank 4 board wipe, but it's also a light fiend, so you could even link it off for Requiem in certain situations. Dugaris is a pretty nice out to various things like the Lunalight Saber Dancer, being able to make one of your monsters big enough to battle over it. Also, just drawing 2 cards during turn 1 if you have extra bodies is really nice. The rank 8 number 90 is definitely not required either, but having a rank 8 option with all your level 8 ritual monsters is pretty nice, and you can sometimes go like Habakiri plus Murakumo into this like mid combo and then have a monster negate for the rest of your combo line. And again, as mentioned, the Abalaku is very optional here, but this can revive your Mitsurugi monsters from the graveyard, which it's never bad to have more options to do that. Plus, even just quick effect to discard a card, destroy a card, as you saw, was pretty nice. And this destroy effect does not target, so that's also very nice. One of my favorite parts about Fiendsmith Mitsurugi is that there are so many different ways to build and play it. And it's also just a really nice deck when it comes to like being able to play through so many hand traps and scenarios. It almost feels like playing Bestial Fiendsmith Control in a lot of ways. That other deck I've been playing recently. But I think that's going to go ahead and do it for my coverage today. So thank you as always for watching. Let's go ahead now and move to the outro. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the very end of the video, which by the way is one of the best ways to support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, take a look at the names on screen. These are folks who have been so generous as to either join as a YouTube member or subscribe over on patreon.com/Hexlex to support. There's also perks for doing so. If you would like to see YouTube videos early, as well as some exclusive videos that get uploaded to YouTube, but for one reason or another I decide not to publish, definitely go ahead and hit that join button to see content early, as well as some exclusive content. If you're looking for more exclusive content, over on patreon.com, I upload exclusive videos that are not posted on YouTube just about every single day. Whether you choose to subscribe over on Patreon, join as a YouTube member, or simply continue to watch, your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. But for now, this is Hexlex. I am signing out, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.